At 2:14 a.m., 40 miles off the shelf edge, a sonar operator saw a return so large the system flagged it as a hardware fault. It wasn't a fault. Whatever it was, it measured longer than the ship's own hull. The crew had been chasing this signal for 3 weeks. That night, it finally surfaced. For 9 seconds, a shape moved through the searchlight beam that was longer than any shark on record. The captain's log that night reads, "Visual confirmed, species unconfirmed. Nobody on this ship is sleeping tonight." This is the story of what happened 4 days later when they decided to go down and meet it. Nobody expected to see it again this close. At first, the crew thought it was a whale. Then the fins surfaced a second time and didn't behave like one. So the team built one plan: lower a reinforced cage with one scientist inside straight down into the animal's own hunting depth. Nobody on that ship could promise the cage would come back up with him still inside it. Dr. Elena Marsh had spent 6 years studying deep trench predators. She volunteered for the cage before anyone could talk her out of it. Every gauge, every rebreather seal, every bolt on that cage was checked twice. The plan called for a maximum depth of 600 meters. Sonar said the animal was already deeper. As the cranes swung the cage out over open water, the deck went completely silent. Her last words over the radio before the cage broke the surface were simple: "Lights on, cameras rolling, let's see what's actually down there." The cage hit the water, and the ship's floodlights disappeared behind a wall of churned white foam. Then the cage began its slow drop into water that hadn't seen daylight in millions of years. At 100 meters, the blue light started to die. At 300 meters, the sonar operator's voice crackled through the radio. "Contact, closing fast." For the first time since the cage left the deck, Elena Marsh stopped breathing evenly. It didn't rush the cage. It circled it. Once, slow, at the very edge of the light, like it was deciding something. The first clear measurement put it at over 18 meters, long enough that no single camera could hold its whole body in frame. Its eye passed within 3 meters of the cage. It didn't blink. It didn't look away. Radio traffic from the surface went quiet. Every camera on the ship's monitors locked onto the same feed. Then it turned and came straight toward the cage. Elena's training told her to stay still. Every instinct told her to brace for the bars to fail. It stopped less than a meter from the bars, close enough that the cage's own camera lens fogged from the disturbance in the water. For 11 long seconds, nothing happened. The animal simply hung there, motionless, studying the cage. Then, without warning, it slammed its tail against the cage frame. The impact spun the cage a full quarter turn and knocked the interior lights out for nearly 2 seconds. On deck, the crane operator's monitor flatlined for 2 full seconds before the feed came back. When the picture returned, Elena was still upright, one hand locked on the bars, breathing hard but alive. Her voice, when it finally came over the radio, was steadier than anyone expected. "Cage is intact. I'm intact. Do not pull me up yet." On the ship, the captain overruled her instantly and ordered the crane to begin a controlled ascent regardless. But 80 meters below, the shark hadn't left. It had simply moved back into the dark to watch. Elena's exterior camera caught something the sonar had missed entirely: old, deep scarring across the animal's flank. Whatever had scarred an animal that size down here was something none of them wanted to think about yet. The crane began to reel in the cable, slowly so the winch wouldn't snap under sudden strain. For the first 30 meters of ascent, everything looked routine. Then the shark reappeared, faster than before. It was no longer circling, it was closing the distance directly on a straight line toward the rising cage. At 40 meters below the surface, the animal accelerated into a full charge, and the cage cameras caught every second of it. Elena's own footage shows her bracing both arms across the bars a half-second before impact. The impact this time was direct, jaws closing around the cage's corner support beam. The beam held, barely. Deep bite marks scored clean through 3 centimeters of reinforced steel. On the surface, the winch alarm screamed as the sudden extra load nearly stalled the motor. For a moment, the entire crew believed the cable itself might be the next thing to fail. Then, just as suddenly as it charged, the animal released the beam and dropped away into the dark. Elena's vitals, monitored from the surface, showed a heart rate that hadn't been recorded in any training simulation. 20 meters from the surface, everyone assumed the worst was over. They were wrong. The animal hadn't retreated. It had gone underneath the cage.
It came straight up from beneath the cage, mouth open, faster than anything that size should be able to move. The cage's belly camera caught the animal's full open jaw for less than a single frame. The cage lurched violently upward as the animal's snout struck the base plate instead of closing around it. Investigators later concluded the strike wasn't a miss, it was warning, a controlled near contact, not a true attack. Elena, thrown against the bars, still managed to keep the exterior camera rolling and steady. What her camera recorded next is the part of the footage still debated among marine biologists today. The animal slowed, leveled out beside the cage, and matched its ascent speed exactly, swimming alongside it instead of attacking. For nearly a full minute, predator and cage rose through the water together, side by side, in total silence. Elena would later describe it as the strangest 30 seconds of her career, like being escorted, not hunted. Then, at 15 meters from the surface, the animal peeled away into the deep and was gone.
When the cage finally broke the surface, the deck erupted, relief, shouting, and disbelief all at once. The cage itself told its own story before Elena said a word. Crew members pulled the hatch open and helped her out, hands shaking both from cold and adrenaline. Her first words once the helmet came off were recorded on 3 separate devices. "It wasn't hunting me, it was inspecting me." The ship's biologist reviewed the footage in real time, replaying the moment the animal matched the cage's ascent speed exactly. That behavior, matching speed, maintaining distance, never fully closing its jaw, doesn't match any known predatory pattern. One theory took hold on the ship almost immediately. The animal wasn't attacking, it was testing the cage's strength. Another theory was harder to sit with, that it recognized the cage from somewhere or something before. Whatever the reason, the sonar operator confirmed one unsettling fact before the ship changed course. The animal hadn't left the area, it had simply gone back down to wait. Frame-by-frame analysis put the animal's total length between 18 and 20 meters, larger than any confirmed Megalodon estimate before it. Its bite force, calculated from the depth of the marks left on solid steel, exceeded every existing predator estimate on record. The old scarring across its flank told an even stranger story. Some marks were consistent with old wounds from another animal of comparable size, meaning this one wasn't necessarily alone. That possibility, that the trench held more than one, changed the entire tone of the mission briefing that followed. A second, smaller sonar contact had in fact been sitting nearly 400 meters away the entire time Elena was in the water. Nobody had flagged it in the moment. Every eye on the ship had been locked on the one in the light. It raised a question the crew hadn't wanted to ask out loud. Was the whole encounter closer to a controlled inspection than anyone realized? Elena, reviewing her own footage later that night, kept returning to one single frame. In it, the animal's eye is turned not toward the cage, but directly toward her, through the bars. The next morning, the ship's science lead proposed something almost nobody expected. One more descent, shorter, better prepared. Elena didn't hesitate. She said the data from 30 more seconds down there was worth more than 100 hours of sonar. This time, the cage carried something new, a sealed external bait canister untouched by human hands once loaded. The plan wasn't to provoke it. It was to see if the animal would return on its own without the cage moving at all. At 200 meters, the cage settled and went still. Elena killed her own headlamp, leaving only the bait canister's faint chemical glow. For nearly 4 minutes, nothing moved. Then, out of total darkness, the same deep scarring pattern slid silently into view. It was the same animal, confirmed instantly by the exact scar pattern the team had mapped the night before. This time, it didn't circle and it didn't charge. It came to a full stop directly beside the cage and simply hung there. Then, in a movement no one on the ship had a name for, it turned its massive head and pressed its snout gently against the bars. Elena's hand, trembling, reached forward and rested against the bars from the inside, mirroring the contact, not touching the animal itself. For nearly 10 full seconds, the largest predator ever recorded on camera and a single human being stayed like that, completely still, completely silent. Then, without any warning sign at all, it pulled back and vanished into the dark in a single powerful stroke of its tail. The sonar never picked it up again that entire week. It was as if the trench itself had closed back over the encounter. Elena surfaced for the final time in complete silence. No shouting, no scramble, just a crew watching in disbelief. Marine biologists still argue over what they watched that day. Predatory testing? Curiosity? Something closer to recognition. What isn't in dispute is the footage itself. 11 minutes that changed what scientists thought they knew about the largest predator in the ocean's history. Elena Marsh has since said only one thing publicly about that moment at the bars. "I don't think it was deciding whether to kill me. I think it was deciding whether I was worth the trouble." Somewhere in that trench, the scarred giant that circled the cage is almost certainly still down there, waiting, hunting, alive. Sonar teams have picked up unconfirmed returns in that same trench twice more since, never close enough to send another cage down. If the largest predator in the ocean's history is still down there watching every ship that passes overhead, what do you think it's waiting for?